Hello everyone, with Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Friday evening, August 18, 2023. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video, share it, subscribe and tap the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I post a brand new video. Feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section letting me know what the weather's been like in your area recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. I respond to all comments and I really live for this stuff. Alright, so let us take a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening. We can see that we have a tropical wave right there across the western portion of the island of Jamaica. And we can see that we have numerous tropical waves across the main development region. That's attached to a monsoonal trough. And it is this trough that's going to be responsible for sending and producing lots of tropical activity across the Atlantic in the coming week. If we actually take a look at the visible satellite images before the sun went down, we can see the clouds associated with that tropical wave, most of which is off to the west of the island at this time. And we can see the clouds associated with that monsoon trough across the main development region. And we can actually see three entities right there. And we can also see some spin associated with these entities that the U.S. National Hurricane Center has highlighted for tropical cyclone development within the next 7 days. And we can see that from left to right, they go up in intensity. And the one that we're going to be putting more for focus on is the one that could make it to the Jamaica area. Right now, it has a 30% chance of tropical cyclone formation within the next 7 days. And according to the U.S. National Hurricane Center, it states an airflow pressure could form in a day or so from an elongated trough of low pressure located several hundred miles to the east-southeast of the Lesser Antilles. Some slow development of this system is possible over the weekend and into early next week as it moves generally west-northwestward at 10 to 15 miles per hour across the Lesser Antilles and into the northeastern Caribbean Sea. So although it says that it's going to be entering the northeastern Caribbean Sea, which would incorporate majority of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the Leeward Islands, there's still a shot of this thing actually taking the southward track and making it closer to the Jamaica area. So it's just a waiting game at this point. And if we actually take a look at the entire Atlantic basin, we can see that yes, we have a lot of above normal waters right there for these systems to work with, for them to develop as they move towards the west. Definitely a record breaker in terms of the heat that's taking place in the waters of the Atlantic. So these systems are definitely going to be robust as we head into the peak of the hurricane season. If we actually take a look at the wind shear forecast for the next 7 days by both the Euro and the GFS, we can see that that system that's expected to enter the Caribbean will have little wind shear to work with as it moves towards the west and west northwest over the next 7 days. And we can see that represented by the whites, and we know the least amount of wind shear is represented by that. And the more the wind shear intensifies, the more colorful it gets. So the blues, the greens, and the yellows, and we don't see much of that across the Caribbean. And if we take a look at the GFS model, we see much of the same thing happening. Little to no wind shear right there across portions of the Caribbean, which is ironic considering that we're actually in an El Nino year and we usually receive a lot of wind shear coming in from the Pacific during this time. If we actually take a look at the precipitation forecast or what the Euro and the GFS are showing in terms of development of this system, we can see represented right here at the bottom right of the screen by the L, and that system is expected to move towards the west according to the Euro, making it even to the south of Hispaniola, maybe even crossing over Hispaniola around Wednesday into Thursday, while the GFS is showing something a bit different. And remember, we always look for consistency. Yes, the GFS is showing it entering the Caribbean, but it looks to be moving more so over into maybe the Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, that side. Either way, we have some amount of disagreement with what exactly is going to be taking place for right now, which is why it's going to be a waiting game. We have to be, constantly watching to see exactly what unfolds. All right, so let's just take a look at what took place across Jamaica for today. Actually, a post was made on our Twitter page at 3:55 p.m. highlighting the infrared satellite images showing clouds bringing overcast skies and isolated thunder showers to sections of some eastern, central, and western parishes. So we definitely gotten on some isolated thunder showers across sections of St. Andrew, sections of western Portland, sections of St. Mary, St. Anne, Trelawney, St. Elizabeth, sections of Manchester, St. James, Hanover, and maybe even sections of Westmoreland gotten on some amount of afternoon thunder showers. And we can see that yes, that was mainly confined to sections of some eastern, central, and western parishes, of course. And if we even take a look at the visible satellite images up to this hour right now, we can see where yes, we indeed had that cloud cover across those spots that we just mentioned. Not so much across Clarendon, St. Catherine, or St. Thomas at all. But we do see that in the evening hours we saw some kind of a burst of convection right there across sections of Westmoreland, and we can see that better on the infrared satellite images right here. And not only even Westmoreland, we see that across sections of Hanover as well. Let's reload these images to get the latest. Alright, so we can see northwestern St. Elizabeth getting in on some of that right now. Hanover, Westmoreland, especially eastern Westmoreland, we see those sparkling white dots. I know that's indicative of some amount of lightning flashes, if not lightning strikes. And we see much of the same on the Cuban Doppler radar images. We see the greens that represent moderate rainfall, the yellows that represent heavy rainfall. And we can see that across sections of Hanover, Westmoreland, and St. Elizabeth right there. If we take a look at the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology website for what took place across Jamaica for today, we can see that yes, portions of the north coast especially gotten on some amount of rainfall for today. We know that this map isn't 100% accurate, but it does paint the picture that yes, we indeed got some amount of rainfall across these very spots. Alright, so before we even continue with the temperatures right now, we need to take a look at another post that was made on our Twitter page today. It states the European Mediterranean Seismological Center has reported a light 4.7 earthquake at 7:17 a.m. west of Jamaica on the Walton Fault Zone. So yes, we definitely got an earthquake. We didn't feel it, considering that it's a light earthquake and it's so far away actually. So light earthquakes are likely felt. We know that moderate earthquakes, minor damage may occur. Strong earthquakes, damage may occur. Major earthquakes, damage expected. Great earthquakes like the one that hit Japan and caused the tsunami back in 2011, significant damage would be expected. And so far, Jamaica has been spared, and we hope that this continues. Either way, we saw that it happened on the Walton Fault Zone. In recent years, majority of these quakes have been happening on the Enriquillo Plantain Garden Fault Zone that runs into Haiti, not to mention the Oriente Fault Zone to the north of Jamaica. So it's quite unexpected to see something happening on the Walton Fault Zone. Either way, it is still a strike, slip, and thrust fault, and these things can happen. We can have one of those major earthquakes similar to what happened in Haiti across the western portions of the basin. All we have to do is just remember to drop, cover, and hold when one takes place. As soon as we feel that shaking, it's just a waiting game at this point. Alright, so let us take a look at temperatures right now. We have 82 degrees Fahrenheit in Kingston, 80 degrees Fahrenheit in Montego Bay. That's about the equivalent of 26 to 27 degrees Celsius. And if we take a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow across Jamaica, we can see that we're going to be receiving some yellows and oranges, and that's indicative of at least 2 degrees Celsius above average temperatures. And we know the average temperatures for the month of August is about 91 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about the equivalent of 32 degrees Celsius, so we should be receiving anywhere from 32 to 34 degrees Celsius at most. Taking a look at the dry air map right now, we can see that the most dry air is right there to the north of the main development region, as indicated by those yellows, oranges, and red. We can see some slight dry air right there to the west of Jamaica, as indicated by those yellows, but for the most part, lots of moist air, especially across the southern main development region, where we have those three areas of disturbance. If we take a look at the Saharan dust, yes, we do indeed have some amount of Saharan dust, but majority of it is dissipating at this time. This is the forecast for 2 p.m. on Saturday, and we hope that it actually, continues to dissipate and bring forth more moisture in the atmosphere. If we take a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow, both the Euro and the GFS are showing that for the most part, Jamaica should be receiving blue surrounding the island, and that represents up to 1.5-meter wave height or less. And that's due to the fact that we're going to be receiving an easterly flow across the island. The most wind, as indicated by those brighter greens into yellows, that represent up to 20 knot winds. However, we can also see that we have those blues that represent the least amount of winds. Where do we see that? Across sections of some central and western parishes, especially across some northern parishes with that kind of east-south easterly flow by the GFS. You are showing more of an easterly flow. Either way, we know that wherever we usually see the blues across the island that represent the least amount of winds, so we'll have those cumulus clouds piling up into cumulonimbus clouds, and then we have the afternoon convection. And with the wind shear coming in from the south southwest for tomorrow, that will definitely favor more rainfall in the way for sections of some northern parishes in Jamaica. So we can see that yes, we definitely are going to be in for some amount of rainfall for Saturday afternoon. Both maps are showing 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 2 p.m. Jamaica time. And where do we see that rainfall? Across sections of some eastern, central, and western parishes, as indicated by those blues. And we see that on both the U and the GFS malls. And we see that especially across northern parishes in Jamaica, especially with that wind shear coming in from the south southwest. Definitely going to be in for more of that rainfall across northern parishes. So sections of St. Anne, St. Mary, Trelawney, St. James, Hanover, sections of Westmoreland, and especially northern areas of some southern parishes. So maybe northern St. Elizabeth, northern Manchester, northern Clarendon, northern St. Catherine, northern St. Andrew. You can see some rainfall across sections of St. Thomas and Portland, especially eastern St. Thomas and Portland for tomorrow. And if you actually take a look at the accumulated precipitation forecast, both maps are showing that yes, there's definitely some rainfall in store for the island for tomorrow. GFS is a bit more robust than the Euro. Euro is showing only up to zero point 0.6 of an inch of rainfall across sections of central Jamaica. GFS is showing up to 0.86 of an inch of rainfall across sections of northern Jamaica. So we're definitely going to be in for some amount of rainfall for tomorrow. And we're indeed grateful for that considering that we're in the month of August and we usually receive an increase in the rainfall across the island. So we'll take all the rainfall that we can get to put some kind of dent in the hydrological drought that we're currently experiencing across the island. Alright, so that's it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let's focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. Alright, so as we can see, we have a lot of cloud cover across portions of the basin, bringing some amount of overcast sky showers and thunderstorms to sections of Florida, the Bahamas, sections of Cuba, sections of Haiti, sections of the Windward Islands. So sections of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, sections of Grenada, Tobago, Trinidad, sections of Guyana, sections of Suriname, and we can also see some rainfall across sections of Panama and Costa Rica as well. If we take a look at the Doppler radar images of the northeastern Caribbean, we can see some amount of rainfall right there across sections of Antigua, Barbuda, Guadeloupe, sections of the US and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and if we even take a look at the wider view of Doppler radar images, or the Barbados radar, actually, we don't see much in the way of rainfall across Barbados right now, only some passing light showers. Most of the rainfall seems to be right there to the south of Barbados. We can see that going into sections of Grenada, sections of Tobago, Trinidad, and we can also see on the wider view of Doppler radar images that we have a lot of rainfall to receive across sections of Florida, sections of the Bahamas, sections of the ABC Islands, as well, majority of the rainfall to the north of the ABC Islands, sections of the Yucatan Peninsula, Nicaragua, sections of Colombia, sections of Guyana, just as we mentioned earlier, as what we saw in the satellite images. As related to the temperature forecast, we can see some slightly above normal temperatures, and we can see that on both the U and the GFS mall for 1 p.m. on Saturday, stretching all the way from the eastern Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico. Taking a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow, we can see that we're going to be receiving up to at least 2 meter wave heights, especially across the eastern Caribbean right there. with 1.5-meter wave heights or less across majority of the Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico. And that's due to the fact that the winds are going to be coming in from the east, averaging 20 knots at most, with the yellows right there that represent up to 25 knot winds in some spots, especially across the northeastern Caribbean. If we take a look at the rain forecast, however, we see that we have a lot of rainfall in store. If they're not already getting the rainfall right now, there's definitely some more rainfall in store for sections of Florida, the Bahamas, Cuba, sections of Jamaica, Hispaniola, sections of the Leeward Islands, Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Tobago, Trinidad. We can also see a lot of rainfall in store for Suriname, French Guyana, sections of Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua. You can see some rainfall in store for sections of southern Belize, sections of Guatemala, Honduras as well. And we see that both maps are showing something similar, even sections of Cuba and the Cayman Islands getting in on some amount of rainfall as well. We don't see much rain in store for sections of Puerto Rico, but they're definitely going to be receiving maybe even slight rainfall up to zero point 0.1 of an inch of rainfall. Definitely going to be in for some rainfall as seen on both maps, because we know that when we see both maps showing the same thing, the chance of it actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.